Hi, I'm Alexis Cuadrado. I'm a musician, a bassist, composer, and producer, and I'm part of the Ori-Gen collective. We are a group of Hispanic and Latin musicians creating a new vision of Latin music today. As I was preparing this webcast, I thought what would be the best way to have a good time, enjoy ourselves, and bring some interesting projects to all of you. So I've invited a group of friends that I love to collaborate with, and we're gonna show you some of the work that we do. My first guest is one of the major voices in music today. She is an incredible violinist and composer, and someone who I really, really admire. We've met fairly recently when she invited me to play on her new album, Swing States. For all of you, here is Regina Carter. Hi, Regina.
Hi, Alexis. How are you?
I'm good. It's so good to see you. And especially, it's been a minute since we've seen each other. I think the last time was
Yeah,
at the studio
it was.
when we
And
were, yeah,
the world has turned upside down since
that's
then.
exactly right. That's exactly right. And it's interesting because today, which is Friday, July 31st, is the day your album is released, your new
Right.
album, Swing States. And I'm so happy that I was part of it really first because I'm a fan of yours. Second,
Thank you.
because the band is extraordinary, but then also because it has a more substantial message than let's just make some really, interesting music. So I wanted to ask you, can you tell us what's the concept behind the album?
Um, well, I was having a conversation, with Kabir last year, and we were just talking about the whole, just how divided the country has become and how ugly the division was, and not even just between political parties, and people weren't hearing each other or listening. Um, Everybody has been on the defensive for a long time. And we got to talking about voting, and I was saying how shocked I was, and disbelief that so many people did not vote in the last election, and especially African Americans. Because for me, for as far as I'm concerned, we don't have an option not to vote, especially when you think about folks getting their heads bashed in and hosed and dogs sicked on them, marching for this right. And we just lost Representative John Lewis yesterday, who was very instrumental, one of the very instrumental figures in fighting for our rights to vote. And in my house growing up, it was never an option. It was just something, this is your duty, you have to do this. So we were talking about this whole thing, and then he said, have you ever thought about doing a record to try and, promote voting, or, and I hadn't. So he kind of put that idea in my head, and from there it grew.
Right. I mean, I think it's interesting that, in a way, that the meaning of your album has already changed from when we recorded it to today in just a few months, right? Like, we have a pandemic, we are witnessing this insane social unrest. When I thought, let's play something together, and I thought of inviting you to do this, which I'm so glad that you kindly accepted to do. I was wondering what song could we play with this idea that we did this album a few months ago. Now it takes a more meaningful kind of like sense to me, even that it did 6 months ago. And I try to find a song that would kind of have that. And I thought about Amazing Grace. It's an inspiring song for me to think about right now. And And if you'd like, I think that it would be fun to play it.
Yeah, I would love to. Thanks for that. You know, it's my mom. It was one of her favorite songs,
Oh,
and her name was Grace.
oh,
But just one of it's such a moving hymn, and really just talks about, you know, finding a truth, and seeing things. I'm taking it maybe a step further, or to put yourself in someone else's shoes in order to try and understand
yeah,
what they may be going through, in order to hear their side of the story. You're never gonna we're never gonna completely understand each other's experiences, but at least if we try to put ourselves into each other's shoes, we have a different perspective on the situation. So I think it's a hymn that will always be relevant, no matter what's going on.
right. We can all use a good dose of empathy today. So, thank you so much for talking, Regina. And
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Alexis.
yes, yes. Let's play.
Okay.
Now, I'd like to present to you a film score that I did on an old silent movie from 1906. This is a film directed by Alice Guy-Blaché, who was the very first female filmmaker that existed. The film is called The Consequences of Feminism, and it's a really, really interesting movie. I wrote a score that is sort of like in between a romantic piece and a tango piece, in part inspired by my brother in music, Pablo Aslan, who taught me how to play tango. And for the segment, I'm gonna have two guests. The very first guest is one of my favorite people in the entire world, my daughter, Mina. Mina once asked me a question that was so poignant that stopped me in my tracks and made me change how I think about music and life. Then I will talk with Pamela Green. She's a filmmaker that made a documentary about the fascinating life of Alice Guy-Blaché. The film is called Be Natural, and I highly recommend it. Here is The Consequences of Feminism. Hey, Mina.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good.
Great. So I wanted to talk to you because I think that we have an interesting story to tell.
Okay.
Since you were little, you were often very concerned about the role of women. Can you tell me a little bit what that concern was about?
Okay, so I always thought that women would never really get like the same jobs that men would. For example, a lot of men were in construction. I still ask some of these questions. And a lot of men were musicians.
Yeah, and especially with the musicians, right?
Yeah.
One day you came to me and you said, Papa, why are you always playing with men? And here's a part that really shocked me and still shocks me today. And you said, where are the women? Right? Where are the women? You were so right. So it was inspiring to me because your question made me really think about what I was doing with my band and my work and my compositions. So can you tell us what the change was because of your question?
I think the change was that you started to work with more women. And like, okay, we need to explain the movies that you do.
Right. So
Okay.
so I started working on those films and films that were made by women. Besides having women in the band, I also was interested in the perspective of women. Right?
Yeah.
So one of them was Shoes by Lois Weber. It's an
Yeah.
old film. And the other one, which is the one we're gonna see today, do you remember the title?
Yeah, it's called The Consequences of Feminism.
Wow, The Consequences of Feminism. And that was directed in 1906 by Alice Guy-Blaché. Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you remember what happens in the film?
Yeah, it's about basically it's about men who act like women and women who act like men. Which kind of spreads awareness of like why aren't like more people being themselves and not trying to act like a specific gender more
Right.
than what they want to be,
Right.
and other things too.
Right. So everybody should just be whoever they are and everybody should be treated equal, right?
Yeah.
Do you agree with that statement? Okay. But I just want to thank you for asking that question because it kind of changed my life.
Okay.
Yeah, it made my life better because it made me realize I was kind of on the wrong side of things.
Well,
And
okay, I wouldn't really say the wrong side.
okay, unaware side of things. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah? Cool. So thank you, Mina.
You're welcome.
I love
Okay.
you.
I love you too.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, of course. It's my pleasure. I mean, the first question that I would have is like, how did you discover her?
I saw something on TV about women pioneers in cinema, and one of them was Alice, and I couldn't believe she had done all these things. So like any project, I wanted to find out more, and it just became an obsession.
So yeah, like why did you get so obsessed with her?
I just was very impressed and mesmerized. I was impressed and mesmerized by her strength and her abilities, her talent and conviction. And I thought, as a woman, I had never heard of her. And I think more should know about her. I wanted everybody to know about her because I think history, the way it's been told, has betrayed us in a way, because we're not getting the full picture. And by telling this story, it opens the door to so many unknown stories like this that complete history and change it the way we've known it. It's constantly changing. And that was attractive for me to correct it for her, because I felt she was robbed in a way, but also you don't get to change history every day.
Right. So do you see Alice as someone who saw the world with a bigger picture? It's like, to me, the issues that The Consequences of Feminism or Algie the Minor, which are the two films that I scored, point at, are issues that are very, very, very important still 100 plus years later.
Mm-hmm. I think she looked through a lens where I think she believed in equality. And I think that she ignored the obstacles and saw the possibilities. So she looked at it from all different angles. And rather than just documenting, she really cared about the story. You know, she made a fun thing about the consequences of feminism. But I'm sure she felt that way because in a way she was in charge of some stuff, but in the real world, she probably wouldn't get away with that because she would be pushed aside and men would take over. And that's what happens at the cafe, right? There's like a turn. So I think she mirrored her opinions in her storytelling. And I think that's what's really important and special about her, because we can get a sense of the times and how prolific she was in a way during that time. It's almost like she didn't belong in that era to a certain extent. You know, it's like she came in a spaceship from later in life.
As a filmmaker, what do you like about The Consequences of Feminism? What stands out for you as a film?
Well, I think it's well directed. It doesn't feel like something from 1906. I love the humor, and I think it's very relevant. We still deal with that today. Women aren't getting paid equally. The equality is not there yet. It's improved, but it's not there yet. It just shows her personality, poking at something that bothered her, I think, and she found a way to make it humorous. That's what I like about her in general. You can watch her movies. You don't have to be a silent film expert to enjoy them. I certainly am not a silent film expert. I was obsessed with Alice, but I had to learn about silent film and all these things because I didn't go to film school. But her character and her thinking and her craft was what was interesting to me. And that was the whole point of Be Natural, is to try to make it accessible and relatable to a younger audience, but accessible for everybody. You don't have to be an academic to enjoy it.
Right. I mean, it definitely convinced me that I had to score Alice's films.
That's great.
Thank you so much, Pamela. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much.
Yes, take care.
Okay, ciao, ciao.
Ciao. For a number of years, I've played with my friends Claudia Cunha and Pablo Vergara in a band called the Trio of Words. We explore the repertoire of Latin American and Spanish songs, not necessarily like in a jazz way, but really songs from songwriters. And because I come from Catalonia, which is a part of Spain that is very political, and we grew up in the middle of the Franco dictatorship. They come from Chile, and they grew up in the Pinochet dictatorship. We have a lot of things in common. So we're playing this song from the amazing Victor Jara. Victor was a mind-blowing songwriter who was unfortunately tortured and killed by the Pinochet regime. The song we're gonna play is called Manifiesto, Manifest.
Yo no canto por cantar, ni por tener buena voz. Canto porque la guitarra tiene sentido y razón. Tiene de tierra y alas de palomita. Es como el agua bendita, santigua glorias y penas. Aquí se encajó mi canto, como dijera Violeta. Guitarra trabajadora con olor a primavera. Que no es guitarra de ricos, ni cosa que se parezca. Mi canto es de los andamios para alcanzar las estrellas. Que el canto tiene sentido cuando palpita en las venas. Lisonjas fugaces ni las famas extranjeras, sino el canto de una lonja hasta el fondo de la tierra. Todo y donde todo comienza. Canto que ha sido valiente, siempre será canción nueva, siempre será canción nueva, siempre será canción nueva.
Now I would like to show you another film score. This is the most recent work that I've done, actually. And a few weeks ago, my friend Karen Klein, who's an experimental filmmaker from Seattle, called me and said, hey, I have a film that I think you'd like to score. So we got to work, and to me, what's interesting about this movie is that it's a work made during the lockdown, during the pandemic. We worked with the tools that we had around us, the closest things that we could find. And I'm really, really happy about the result. Karen and I had a really interesting conversation, and we want to show you the film. So here it is. It's called Film Tattoo. Hey, Karen.
Hi, Alexis.
How are you?
How are you?
I'm so happy that you wanted to meet today and talk a little bit about your film, Film Tattoo. It's a very, very, very special film. I've loved your work for a long time. We've known each other for a long time. We've talked about collaborating for a long time, but we never really collaborated in the sense that, you know, I did a score to your film. But before we start talking about the film, I think that it would be cool to actually watch it. And it's such an intense piece that I think that us trying to describe what it feels like, it's going to defeat the purpose a little bit. So let's take a look at it, and then maybe we can talk about our collaboration.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, there it is.
There he is. Wow.
It'd be great if you could sort of like enlighten us a little bit about what your story is with the film before we talk about the music.
I started out wanting to make a film about confinement. So suddenly my immediate environment, my home, I have a tiny yard. I live in Seattle where it's green all year round, but I was a tiny yard, and I realized that I could flip that in a sense and turn it into an advantage by creating this film. I have always loved the Black background, and I wanted to start with the Black background. But I also wanted to create that kind of difference, the shift between light and dark, which I feel like is part of what we're all in the middle of dealing with. You know, some days you really focus on the advantages of having this quiet time at home and, you know, being more with your family and learning to make pizza from scratch, or, you know, whatever it is. There are these things that you think, oh, wow, if it weren't for this time, this difficult time, I wouldn't have this opportunity. And on the other hand, there are times when you just feel like, oh, what the fuck, you know, one more day of this and I'm going to tear my hair out or something. And the first step was to create those frames. And I did that by being in my garden, scraping black leader, which when you scrape off the black, it's clear. Scraping it with garden stones. I scraped all of that, rubbed it between garden stones. And so the way the black and clear frames work is it's aleatory. I mean, I couldn't plan it, but I knew that I wanted to have a certain amount of black material left on the frame, but some of it removed. And I love the harshness of those scratches. You know, for me, that's a really important textural element, and texture is very important, obviously, to what I'm trying to do. And then I felt compelled to fill the frames with the plants that were in my yard. And April, which is when I made this film, April in Seattle is a particularly beautiful time for blue and purple plants in particular. Reds, blues, and purples. Some of my favorite colors and plants. So those are prominent with some green thrown in, but those are prominent because that's what was available also in my yard. Right. Again, just, you know, that sense of constraint, which we all talk about as media makers or, you know, as artists. Constraints are terrific. I love constraints. Whatever they might be, to me, they're very freeing in a certain way.
So how did you imagine the music for this film was going to be? And to me, the process of collaboration is almost as important as the result itself. And I think I'm curious to know from your end, what was it like? What was the process of collaborating with me and what you were expecting and what we got in the end?
I somehow immediately knew that this was going to be a collaborative film. Even before I thought about you in particular, I just felt like, okay, so I've made this by myself in the confines of my yard, but the way to collaborate is to reach out for soundtrack work. This was just a really different experience because I felt like I could, you know, I mean, hand it to you and entrust it to you, and you brought your own incredible creativity to the table and came up with something that was way beyond what I had imagined or hoped for because of your own process.
I kind of heard this pseudo-chaotic, different depths, different planes of like loud, quiet, present, far, you know, high pitch, low pitch, different tonalities that are happening at the same time. So I sort of like had an idea, like a very abstract idea of how abstract I wanted the soundtrack to be. But I thought that the way to achieve it would be kind of follow the same process that you followed. And in order to follow that process, I had to learn the process first. So that was a bit of a, that was a bit of a going into a deep rabbit hole. I wanted to replicate this randomness, this improvisational element, and yet make it sonically interesting and sonically matching with the film. So to me, the beauty of the collaboration was that I was kind of able to go into your mind, see what was there, and then make something out of it, but without seeing it first, I felt like I was trying to hit the piñata and I was not hitting it. You know what I mean? My blindfold was really working. I love that the film is a film of today, of, July of 2020. This is how we felt in July of 2020. And for this, I'm just like super grateful that it exists and that we got to do it together. So
Me too. And I'm so glad that you see that in it, because that's definitely what I see in it.
It's given me an incredible amount of joy to do this and work on this, and I'm very happy and very proud of it. So I want to thank you so very much for
Thank you.
some time to talk, and be well, and we will be talking more sometime soon.
Thank you, Alexis.
Take care. We'll talk.
You too. Okay. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
To end the webcast, I want to tell you a story that's a little funny. It's like, have you been somewhere, something's happening, and you don't even know that you're part of it? That's kind of how I feel about playing flamenco music. I grew up in Spain, and in the 1990s, when I was a young musician, there was a movement happening that was called flamenco-jazz. There are a number of musicians there who are starting to mix both genres. And amongst them were Jorge Pardo, Carlos Benavent, who played with Paco de Lucia, but also Javier Colina, Chano Dominguez, Perico Sambeat, and Mark Miralda. The latter three are friends of mine who I've had the chance to collaborate and play with over the years. And I want to bring them and other friends to you to show you a little bit what this whole flamenco jazz thing is about. So I've invited, besides Chano, Perico, and Mark, Danny Perez, a guitarist from Spain, Henry Cole, Hadar Neuberg, and the amazing cantaor and piano player, Diego Amador. I asked them, can you tell me what flamenco has done for you, or what jazz has done for you, depending on which side they were coming from? So we talked a little bit, and then here's what they had to say.
It has had a great influence in all of us, and it's been a positive influence.
Flamenco has added something very special in my music.
Mainly a different rhythmic feeling, different attitude to play it.
It's hip as fuck, man. It's hip. It's very hip. It's hip. That's the way it's the way it is. It's hip. You want to be hip and funky and mean. Flamenco is that, man.
So kind of got me even more into trying to be like a singer in those moments, especially when I'm playing with Chano, and I know he expects me at certain moments to kind of, lead like a singer would lead. So it put me in a really powerful position.
It's very interesting that you have it in you without even knowing that you do.
Mira, yo estoy al servicio de la música de siempre y lo que requiere la música en cada momento es la que manda, ¿no? No es, cuando uno es flamenco o viene del jazz o viene de... Eso nunca lo vas a perder, ¿no? Como bien decía el maestro Camarón, ¿no? Uno entra y sale cuando quiere, ¿no? Si lo lleva adentro.
So yeah, it's like so deep. slow, and I love it.
It's so slow, and there's a lot of room. So you are on the edge. There's this edge that tempo and that soleá compass give you. That it just you have to be connected.
To me, soleá is something that is so close to the slow blues in jazz, and even the things that the singer are telling, the lyrics are in the blues and in the soleá are about this moment in your life when you have a loss, or you love someone that it doesn't correspond to you, so blues and soleá is almost the same. It's almost the same. So you can put together, and it's gonna work. And you have you have these songs that we're gonna play. That you can see that you can listen the flamenco and you can listen the blues as well.
Right. Yes.
So for me, they are really connected.
Fui pela parte e al cabo damos yo tiempo a mi centro vino contra fui piena y perdí mi centro vino contra
And that's it for today. Thank you so much. Check out the Ori-Gen webpage, Facebook, Instagram, follow us, tag us, all of that good stuff. And remember, wear a mask outside. Black lives matter. Science is real, and love is love.